Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. A brand new video on Marvel Contest of Champions is coming at you. This video is all about me versus Kabam story writing and Marvel Contest of Champions storylines and things like that, because I've not reached the end of my patience with it, but I feel that there's a lot of things and inconsistencies when you're delivering a game that other games, let's say Telltale games, going to deliver a really strong kind of storyline, and where Marvel Contest of Champions doesn't really hit the mark. And before I go into this video, I'm not saying that the game should be in any way, shape or form like Telltale games or any game where they completely based off a story. What I really want to get out of this video is just kind of show you where there could be a little bit of improvement here or there, and also better structure behind creating stories in the game, as well as a better story-based experience for those who are interested in stories, as well as kind of outing a big problem in Marvel Contest of Champions that the community has with rush culture. Obviously, Kabam aren't the greatest storytellers in the world, and I do feel at times that when they're creating stories in-game, they're not really followed by most people, and not a lot of people are really interested. It's kind of no surprise that they wouldn't go to any kind of source material, so that's why you don't see kind of the exact same storylines playing out as you say you've read. I suppose it's the argument that if you read the story and you went to the cinema and went, hey, that story's exactly the same, oh, it's a bit boring because I know that story, or go, right, I'm going to play a game now, oh, it's the exact same story I've seen in the film and also I've seen in the comic books. You kind of go, I need something new and kind of fresh, maybe a fresh twist, and that's why the utilization of different champions in these storylines seems fairly prominent in the game. And obviously Kabam have done publications. They've done the Marvel Contest of Champions comic book, which saw Guillotine, saw Civil Warrior, and obviously now unpublicated to that is Morningstar. The way that Civil Warrior was kind of portrayed was kind of a, it's in like an iffy one with regards to a backstory, and Guillotine had a very kind of short brief with regards to delivery, so we don't really see a kind of fantastic backstory, but still sufficient enough from Jeanine Sauvage in France, as well as a really kind of decent, and I think that's the whole scheme of Guillotine and why she works so well and so brilliant, is she tied to historical events, as well as the line of guillotines from the late 1800s to present day with Jeanine Sauvage. However, Morningstar seems to be a very frustrating character for myself with regards to creation. I have been kind of fairly vocal on not really enjoying the kind of backstory, and I'll kind of explain why. Morningstar was kind of tipped to be one of these kind of arch nemesis for Guillotine.
This new character is called Morningstar. She is a character that we created to be Guillotine's nemesis.
And the whole kind of creation process behind this was very odd. And odd in the sense that I like the historical aspect of Guillotine, and that's why Guillotine really worked, has having a character that is tied to historical events, and that's just the one amazing aesthetic thing that Al Ewing, who's the creator of Guillotine, put in place. The biggest drawback for me was the historical events based on Morningstar. She is seen in 999 AD, so we meet her as Queen Hassan of Longoria. Longoria. Oh, you mean Longoria, Texas? No, Eva Longoria. Or even the remotely similar Langorian, which is in France near Bordeaux. Yeah, is that the correct Longoria? No. All right, okay. So let's think about what was actually happening in 909 AD, and it was all about Robert II. Robert II was not a well-liked king. He was a complete horrible person to his sons. He had two sons. They rebelled against him because obviously they wanted the throne because he was an idiot. He didn't get any support from the church. The church didn't support him at all, and that's pretty bad if the kind of church doesn't support a king, because that was pretty prominent at the time. It's like, well, you're not seen to be with God. So that would have been a pretty decent story to kind of talk about Robert II, or maybe intertwine a kind of queen within that. Maybe someone that was going to be overthrowing him, but really tying it to historical events. Oh, and just before I go anywhere, Robert II died whilst fighting and being at war with his sons. I mean, that is pretty bad from any stretch of the imagination. So a tyrant like that, that's more kind of like consumed by war, would have been a really good kind of choice for tying into some historical stuff going on. As we know from watching the motion comic, that we see Queen Hassan return at 1944. Mephisto has kind of like done his bit to try and get her to kind of go like, oh, you know, I'll trick you, or tricking thing, whatever. She's then out of the Iron Maiden. And obviously thinking about it, that would have been a better name for Morningstar. Like, I spoke to my girlfriend and she went, Morningstar, that sounds like a My Little Pony kind of name. It's a bit kind of flouncy. So wouldn't it have been more apt to call her the Iron Maiden? I know that obviously people say, yes, copyright and the name of Iron Maiden. Well, no, if you call it the Iron Maiden, there's no copyright of usage for the fact that that's a torture weapon, even putting the in front of it. The next thing is 1944. What's that really got to do with the whole scheme of things? We see Morningstar come out of the Iron Maiden, or kind of bond with it and become more powerful, yes. But 1944, what's so significant about 1944? We don't really learn. What's that? What's your secret weapon for Hitler? Is there some kind of thing with Hydra that Morningstar is then be attributed to? Because that doesn't really put us into the present day where Genevieve Sauvage is. The only other guillotine to really tie into this 1944 event is if they did something with Odette Sauvage, who was a female guillotine there at the time. But it would mean that they'd either have to make a new character for her, or hopefully maybe tie in something with Red Skull. That would be quite cool, wouldn't it? So storytelling in-game is something that I'm very, very passionate about. Why? Because I like the experience of following a story. And I just don't think the game really does this too well. The dialogue is alright at times between characters. But I feel that from a visual perspective, we could be seeing a lot more. And the kind of scripts that we see are very kind of boring, and they're kind of like quick tap, and nobody really cares about it. That's the main thing there. Kabam themselves say that they kind of look a lot at comic book source material. I've got some here. You can take them if you want. Have a good read. Maybe get some ideas with it. And my own thoughts are that whoever is writing those scripts or kind of coming up with ideas, his time is largely wasted because everybody spends most of the time just skipping through it, which is kind of disappointing if you want to run decent comic book stories within this game. So it's no surprise that a majority of people actually just skip through these kind of things and go, right, I just want to complete the thing, I want the rewards, and then I want the next content. And that's just largely the culture within the game. And it's disappointing, but unfortunately it just seems to be the way that everybody kind of works with this. That's what they want. They want to get things done and out of the way. They don't care about a story within it. And I think that's the more that the community pushes for just kind of going, got it, done, that there's going to be less chance that stories are going to be developed any further. So it's one of the most letdowns for me within the game. Unique story writing could really be there, but it's just not. And I think that if Kabam want to concentrate on stories as well, and obviously that guy that, you know, someone's going to be put out of a job for writing all these transcripts to a point where they're not going to develop any story. So sorry to that guy, you know, you're going to have your P45, which in the UK is basically like saying, I think it's like your pink slip or something in the US and whatever country. It's just basically saying you're fired, basically, because you're made redundant from your post. But what they could do with regards to improving that is either have something on the Marvel Contest of Champions website, or have something that we could see as a motion comic for what is the story of the month. Granted, yes, it is a motion comic, but it's more of a kind of introductory thing. It's more of a trailer, a tease for what it's all about. But not a lot of people do get very interested with the scheme of the story, because if you go by, oh yeah, the motion comic's exactly the same. Well, it's not, because the story doesn't go, oh, there's Morningstar. Yes, we're attacking her to then take her down to put her in an Iron Maiden for Mephisto to get her out for her to transport to 1944. That's not the story. The story is actually within the event quest itself. So it's not all doom and gloom. I do want to kind of raise an issue, but also I want to come up with ideas to kind of be a solution to the problem. And it's all down to a point of visual aspects, because you can't do voice where other kind of games like Telltale games are able to deliver voice and kind of movements and things like that. At the moment, it's just going to be more of a static thing. And the idea is that if you go to different points, so say you're traveling in a mission and then you kind of go, right, boom, it pings up with that bit of dialogue between two people. Instead of it being that, instead, at certain points you hit like a comic book reel like this. And then what you're able to do is click on it and read it, which I think would be better, and it's like quick to see information. Not maybe as kind of wordy or kind of so many kind of blocks than this, but enough that you could just get an idea of the way that the story is going and get a kind of purpose for the event. That would probably be a good thing with that. And obviously this can be a thing in your settings to put the option of seeing them on or off. This is something for the hardcore grinders and also the legend runners and people that just want to complete it really quickly. So they can option to turn it off or option to turn it on. I probably would myself keep it on, but that's just because I really want to get into a story around these things. So I want to put the time to put together a story for the event quest. I want to take my time to kind of get to enjoy it. But the way that it's delivered at the moment is just too overcomplicated for what it is and could be just a very easy process. Even to a point of putting in those kind of cutscenes that we're expecting at the back or end point of most things. Like, what happened to those cutscenes? Like, I thought they were meant to be at the end of every event. I think Terra Genocide was the last I remember an ending event kind of real thing. So a bit disappointed that those aren't a thing and those aren't more prominent in the game for the point of storytelling. When coming up with a new character for Marvel, for anything, for yourself, for your own kind of graphic novels and comic books, which is something that I really aspire to do and I will do in the future, I come up with this little acronym to help me out every time I'm thinking about the process. And it is called Actotum, and it stands for affliction. So what kind of injuries or afflictions that this character would have that would kind of motivate them to do whatever. Is it going to be like a mental thing? Is it going to mentally affect them? That's really kind of that thing with affliction. Conflicts, like who are they going to be up against? Who are they going to be warring with and why? Tie-ins, so what will it tie into? Is it going to tie into something going on in the present day, the past, a fraction of time, other, you know, characters? If it's not a Marvel-based comic book you're writing, then is it going to be on a different level? Is it going to be about terrorism? Is it, you know, what is it going to be tying into? Origin, so like definitely the bare bones of what, from the point of like an egg hatching, where's the origin? What's it all about? And that's something that I think Kabam really kind of struggled with this. Timeline, so where the timeline of events. Obviously, like I said previously in the video, that Guillotine is very, very all about historical events. Enemies, obviously, yes, we've talked about enemies. Conflict and enemies is sort of similar unless there's something other than that's going on there. Conflict could be wars and things like that. Enemies could be like nemesis. And the same thing can be for like the situation we just talked about with Guillotine and Morningstar, and not having that. Well, if they're nemesis, then why didn't they fight off against one another? Is that to come? Why is she in 1944? What's the deal with it, present day stuff? And motivation, what motivates them? What are they striving to do? The same thing with regards to the way that they deliver, with regards to like an acting kind of perspective. So those things, Actotum is what I largely follow in order to kind of give myself a decent structure when writing something. And I really do hope the writing process and kind of creation process for Morningstar was a little bit more structured than this.
Guys, I've had a brilliant idea. So what we'll do, we'll take the guillotine sword, we'll give it to this queen in 99999 AD, right? And no one likes her. They kill her or put her in some kind of torture thing. I don't know. And then for some reason, Mephisto turns up. And then we'll send her to 1944.
But if she was meant to be the guillotine's nemesis, shouldn't she tie into other guillotines in the timeline or in the present day? What's the deal with that?
I don't know. We'll make something up.
So my final verdict is Kabam is guilty of not putting attention to detail with regards to stories and the way that it's delivered to the point of the player. Not many people I know can tell me what the last story was all about when it comes to the event quest. I'd like to find someone who would be able to tell me the conflict that's going on in Act 5 at the moment and the whole story with that. Kabam are building these kind of stories, and to a player's perspective, they have no idea what's going on, and that is a big disappointment for people that are interested in stories. And obviously I'm not saying that you should force it down people's necks, but I think you should give people the option whether or not they're interested in a story or not. It's something I've really pushed with Kabam for a while, and this is the kind of the point where I've lost the end of my tether. So I thought I'll come up with a good argument, I'll then come up with a good suggestion and improvement, and now I'm going to do the sentence. And the sentence is for RichtheMan to write Kabam a decent origin story for the Fleur de la Mal, the sword and also tie it into a few events and try and add a bit more padding to the Morning Star saga / story. So that's something that I'm going to do. I've put something together with Mephisto in the story. There's references to Captain Britain, Excalibur, and there may be references to Champions of Europe and the Secret Empire. So yes, I did a good job with it. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully it kind of engaged with you guys that are interested in stories and also the content that I produce. So I've been RichtheMan. If you want to put a comment below about how you feel about stories and the way that they're kind of produced in the game and the way and how we see them, then leave a comment below. If you have a suggestion on the forum post, then put it in, because it'll be put on the request and suggestions bit. And yeah, follow me on social media, links in the description and popping up now, and subscribe for more Marvel Contest to Champions based content. Bye bye for now.